Hello and welcome to this AFK journey video. So it's been quite a while since I updated the Mythic Plus and Supreme Plus priority list, and the last time we did an update was in the Song of Strife early game where we talked about the different units that people want to focus on. And I think I saw quite a few comments down there asking for an update because there are a lot more new players and there are some returning players wondering what are the units to get to S plus now, right, compared to the previous season. So in this video we're going to do an update for that as requested. And before we start talking about the units, I'm going to run through the tiers first so that you guys know why different units are in different tiers. So first of all, we have the don't do it. So this tier is basically a tier for units which generally don't see much use, and your resources are better off in other units up there. So that's why I say don't do it. Like, you have better choices, and this unit ain't even that good even if you get it to Mythic Plus. Although Salazzo has some potential, which I'll talk about later when we run through him. And then we have the need more data tier, which is basically a tier where I think there isn't really enough time to tell how good the unit is relative to the meta, and more testing is needed to see whether or not these units are S plus or M plus worthy, or whether or not they shouldn't be invested at all. So that's for the needs more data part. There's also the don't need M plus S plus to work. So units in this tier are basically units that can function even without Mythic Plus or the Supreme Plus stat, or even the skills itself. So these units are decently good even at a lower tier. So we have Entendra and Cecil, which are not so reliant on their EX weapon nor stats for their purposes, for their early game content push purposes. So next we have the Supreme Plus for PvP. So this is strictly for PvP centric characters that you want to get to Supreme Plus to have an edge in that game mode, because they are pretty game changing. So Diana is the prime example for that, being a super duper niche unit in the PvP scene, but super duper powerful if you do get him up in terms of tiers as well as the team building side. So we have the Mythic Plus is enough, which is for the units which functions decently well just with their EX weapon Mythic Plus, and Reina is the prime example for this tier, because for Reina's case, before Mythic Plus, Reina ain't exactly super duper good. Like, for what he does, he has this reposition ability, he has this ultimate that traps the enemy, and he has an additional damage skill. But what makes Reina truly good is the EX weapon for the 25% damage buff on the bosses, as well as the damage reduction on the carry that you're trying to swap over, or the semi-tank that you're trying to swap over. So that's why M plus on Reina is more than sufficient. And Supreme Plus top priority. So these are units which I'll say get them to Supreme Plus ASAP. They are generally units which are super duper good all around, or they're super duper meta. So Lily May is the prime example for this one, because Lily May is a unit that sees use all around, and she becomes progressively more powerful the more stats you have on her. So this is a very, very top tier character, and using resources to get her to Supreme Plus ASAP is definitely worth it. So that's for the Supreme Plus top priority. There will be certain units in the Supreme Plus top priority in which might not be super duper useful, but if you do get them to Supreme Plus, is super game changing. I'll explain why later with one of the characters which I want to talk about. So let's start with the don't do it here first. So all the units here basically don't see that much use. I'm going to put in Satrana as well. So basically they don't see much use right now in the Song of Strife. I mean, in the waves of Intrigue season, and their general power level just isn't really that good right now. So unfortunately, you're better off putting your resources elsewhere. For Seth's case, I kind of want to put Seth in the Supreme Plus for PvP tier, but unfortunately right now, I don't know, Seth feels really weak, because I've been testing out Dunleer together with the Mauler Rush side, and I actually find better results with Soren over Seth. Although, right, Seth would still work with Shakir in certain situations, but I think in general, Seth's PvP prowess has sort of fallen quite a bit, right, in terms of what he wants to do, and in terms of how anti-meta, or how the meta is anti against him, because like I think there's just way too much control, and Seth needs a little bit of build up before he starts steamrolling, and that's where there are faster assassins which are a lot better and does the job quicker compared to Seth, and that's why he fell off in PvP. And I don't think you should put resources into this character, because until there's a way to make him work once again, I don't think that any general player should invest in Seth. I'm a big Seth fan, by the way. I do have a video of can we make Seth work, but unfortunately I did quite a few testing with him. In a very underpowered meta, Seth would definitely still have his place, but like I mentioned earlier, he's a little bit slow on the build up, unlike the units like Vala, unlike the units like Sylvina, that I think you did rather invest in those units if you want to form an assassin based team. And for the Mauler Rush side, sometimes Soren performs even better than Seth, so that speaks volume about Seth's performance if I were to compare him to Soren. So therefore don't do it. Like, these units are generally just not very good right now, either not good at performing their tasks, not good against the meta, or just sees no use in general. So like, yeah, you don't use them, and that's why don't upgrade their tiers if you can, or if you have limited resources. So next we have the needs more data. So Nara and Dan is here. For these two units, I don't think I need to speak too much because they're still relatively new. Yes, some people might say that Nara is not that good and Dan is also very niche to the whale side, but I would say we need to give them more time. I think a lot of people have this misunderstanding that we are supposed to grasp the power level of the character within like the first 1 or 2 weeks of the character's release, which is very wrong, because I do think Dan is a very complex character and probably will get a massive power up depending on who gets introduced in the future, depending on which partners get introduced for his teams. And for Nara's kit right now, even though there's a lot of counters and there's a lot of answers that counters Nara's kit, but I do think that given sufficient unit support, given sufficient team support, Nara could be an impactful PvP character moving forward. But right now I'll say put them in this tier because I wouldn't give them a confirmed rating yet, although Nara is probably in the Supreme Plus for PvP side, because assassins usually need Supreme Plus to quickly snipe off the target. Same thing for Dan, but I'll just put them here because there just isn't enough data, right? There just isn't enough time for them to uncover their true potential, so therefore I put them there. Another unit which I would say needs more testing is I'll say Elsa. Okay, so let me explain why I put Elsa here. So Elsa is here not because we don't have enough statistics for her, more like Elsa actually falls in between Supreme Plus and Mythic Plus is enough priority. Like, I'll say Elsa is a character that has the potential to shine at times, but at the same time, like, you are rather better off putting your resources in other characters compared to her. So I think that it's on and off. Yes, she does have the resonating Elsa feature going for her, and she is indeed a very good magical attacker, but would you want to put your resources into her? So that's the question. Like, do you have better choices out there? Is she a must pull, or is she a must to increase the tier? That's the question that I have for her. So right now, in terms of her usage, she does see some very niche use, and she does see some insanely powerful combos with Iron and Armor's Burst, definitely. But I still think that she's in this needs more data category to see how far she will develop in the current season, right, with more features being unlocked, such as her magical charm skill, because I do think that her magical charm is really good. And at the same time, I do think that we need to see how the meta will evolve in the Waves of Intrigue season to see whether or not Elsa will stay relevant for the PvP side. So that's why I put her here in the needs more data, because I think she's somewhere in the Supreme Plus top priority or the Supreme Plus for PvP side, because I don't see a lot of use for her in the PvE side except for certain boss usage. But even for the certain boss usage, it's for a feature which I feel is bugged. So that's why I put her here. So we need more observation to see how far she will go before deciding whether or not to commit to S plus or M plus for this character. So next we have the donate M plus or S plus to work. So I'm just going to dump the characters which I think can work perfectly fine without their EX weapon or even stats, okay? So Kruger is one. I think Laika is also a pretty decent character. Yeah, pretty decent character for just like at the base tier alone, cause having EX weapon on Laika is good, but not that needed. Like, it's not a must. Like, you can use her just for that buff for the team itself. Like if you want to use her for the buffs itself, then you don't even need stats on her, right? Just use her for that initial attack speed and that massive defense reduction. So that's why she belongs in this category. Kruger is just for enough stats to survive against the bosses in Dream Realm. This character is a strictly Dream Realm character, so I put him here because you don't really need a lot of stats for him to perform, right? What he does, which is just to debuff the boss. For Brutus' case, I think Brutus has this inbound that scales with more skill power, so having more stats on Brutus will definitely give him an edge in terms of survival, but Brutus works perfectly fine for that buying 5 additional seconds for your team, and you can amp up that longevity by giving him more skill points. So yeah, this unit is definitely a lot stronger at a higher tier, but he works perfectly fine even without M+ or S+. So that's my evaluation for Brutus. So Antandra, I mentioned earlier, you're only using her for her shielding as well as certain protection against the early game side of things, so you don't actually need her to be at M+ or S+. Same thing for Cecilia. Cecilia is an amazing character. She summons the golem, gets the root off, and then that's that, right? The EX weapon is good, but it's not a must, so you can make her work at the early game content push side without the M+ or S+ skill, so that's why I put her here. So another unit which I think okay, I'm gonna put another tier here just to give more like a clearer picture. So we're gonna give a color coding here. For PvP, I'm gonna give a green color one, I guess. Okay, so this tier goes to units which you get them to a high tier for PvE purposes. Okay, so I'll explain why. Get to a high tier for PvE. Okay, so this one I will put Cassidy here, so later on I'll explain why. So for the don't need N+ and S+ to work, I think this 5 is okay, and yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Yeah, I guess that's pretty much it. Okay, so next we go to the Supreme Plus for PvP. So this character, I'll say they are characters which are generally PvP centric, and you get them to Supreme Plus for them to scale on their stats or scale on their ability in the PvP side of things. So in this side we have Igor, we have Sylvina for sure. Sylvina right now has some pretty powerful usage. I think Vala is more of a PvP character right now than a PvE character. And then Shakir, yeah, Shakir is actually pretty versatile. I'll explain Shakir later. Yeah, Talin's also pretty versatile in terms of general usage. Strictly for PvP, I would say Barrow to a certain extent. Although Barrow has a Zoo team that functions, but I think generally Barrow is still PvP centric. I guess that's pretty much it. Yeah. Oh, Bryon. Okay, I'll explain Bryon's case later. Okay, so now let's talk about the units. Dino, I already explained, very powerful late game wheel type of character. Viperion, super duper powerful if you get to pull what he wants to do, which is to slow the enemy and then eat the enemy up with the AoE potential of this character. So this character generally they are more PvP centric, so you need to get them to Supreme Plus to have some use for them. And I would say that they are necessarily the strongest in PvP, but they definitely have some uses. So Viperion sees some use if you're able to slow down the enemy with his ability and then do what you want to do faster. And then we have Igor, which is also very good for the PvP side if your enemies have no way to answer him. Sylvina is there for the assassin rush, same thing as Vala. This triple assassin is a team which I'm going to cover in the next few days, and I'm going to talk more about them. And these two characters, getting them to Supreme Plus will give them more stats and give them more power through their EX weapon to steamroll better as a triple assassin comp. So Briaro over here has a Zoo team that you can run for your general pushing, and he's definitely more of a PP character to begin with. So pretty similar to Dino in a sense. You want to get him to Supreme Plus for the stats as well as the EX weapon ability and the Supreme Plus ability to actually come back alive faster. So Bryon's case, so sorry, my throat is a little bit not feeling very well, but for Brion's case, right now, one of the most popular character in PvP is actually Lily May. And Lily May is able to interrupt the insta ultimate with Iron, right? So one of the ways to counter that is to use Brion to instantly cast his ultimate at the start of battle to bait out Lily May's ultimate at the start of battle. So this is where Brion's value in the PvP side has risen up quite a bit, and getting Brion to Supreme Plus for PvP would be good to use him as a secondary carry there, right, to fit into the Wilders team with Iron, and as a beta for Lily May's ultimate itself. So that's why I put Brion over here. If not for that counter or that answer against Lily May in arena, I think Brion would definitely be in this tier, because like in general, Brion is a good single target character, but there's just a lot of better choices out there, so you kind of don't need to get him up unless it's for the PvP side just to deal with Lily May. Moving forward, we move on to the next tier. So for this tier, I changed out the naming a little because previously it was high enough tier for PvE, and I figured it would be better if I just change it to Supreme Plus for PvE, because these are generally decent PvE characters for different PvE game modes, and it's actually good to get them to Supreme Plus for those modes which I'm going to talk about. Okay, so first of all, we have Cassidy, the poster girl. So Cassidy at Supreme Plus provides an additional magical damage reduction to amp up the magical damage of other magical damage dealers, and she herself is also a really good damage dealer for magical teams. So you run her for your battle drills, you can use her for certain Dream Realm bosses, although not the best, but definitely usable for that magical damage amped up for your team. And you also can use her for future bossing purposes if there's any mage favored bosses, because she's a very good mage attacker, and she's one of those characters with the magical defense down in her kit as Supreme Plus, so that's why she's here. And then the next few units are all the Dream Realm centric ones, which you kind of get them to Supreme Plus for more stats to perform better for Dream Realm. So the poster Dream Realm character is Corinne and Merrily. So they have fallen off quite a bit, but I think in general they're still usable for Dream Realm purposes if you have them highly developed, and getting them to Supreme Plus for your Dream Realm purposes is also pretty decent. And on top of that, for the Light Bearer A level side, I honestly think Merrily and Corinne, they are the best units available right now. So you're going to put them on a wish list, you're going to get their tiers up eventually. So getting them to Supreme Plus is okay just for Dream Realm purposes. So for these are the two units. And then another unit which I think getting to Supreme Plus for PvE purpose is okay is Lenya. So right now Lenya has a few bosses which she excels at for the physical centric team, as well as Olsen specifically to counter his mechanics. So Lenya probably will see some use in the Dream Realm side because of how she counters the mechanics specifically, and if let's say physical team is a thing in the Dream Realm side of things moving forward, then Lenya will be a pretty potent carry in that category. So getting her to Supreme Plus for the Dream Realm side of things is definitely okay. However, right, like I mentioned multiple times, the damage scaling for Dream Realm usually changes from the early game magical physical damage teams to the true damage side, so there is a possibility that Lenya might fall off, and that's where investing in her to Supreme Plus might be a little bit wasted, right? That is that, okay? That is one thing which I want to state, okay? So that's for Lenya's positioning. Definitely okay for the current PvE performance, but moving forward we don't know, so that's that. And then we have another character which I'm gonna... Okay, I kind of want to put... Okay, I'm going to put Florbell. So Florbell, I would say I put her to Supreme Plus for PvE for the Zoo team gimmick that she's good at. So you kind of want to have more stats on her for her to be a decent enough carry in that team. But other than that, I think... Yeah, like I don't think she's particularly good for other contents outside of content push. But like in that slot, I think she's quite a core unit for the Zoo team moniker to function. So that's why I put her to Supreme Plus for PvE. I think you can run her for PvP purposes as well with Barrow. Same team setup, the Zoo team moniker, the Zoo team idea. So getting her to Supreme Plus for these purposes I think should be okay if you intend to push for her tiers. Yeah. So yeah, I guess that's that. Yeah, I guess that's that. Okay, there's another group of units which I really don't know how to put them. Do I want them to Supreme Plus? Like, do I want Parisa to Supreme Plus? So, okay, I'll put Parisa to Supreme Plus. Parisa is a very good damage dealer, like for your Legends Trial, for your Battle Drill, and for certain contents that requires you to have a AoE stacking damage dealer. Parisa is actually really good. But then, like, I think there are a lot of powerful Wilders units that are so fast-paced, like Arden, Iron, Lily May, that I think Parisa pales in comparison. Although I think if you are putting her to Supreme Plus, just for those few contents that Parisa is insanely good for, I think it's okay, because she is a very decent damage dealer if she can ramp up her damage, and getting her to Supreme Plus for that would be a good choice in the long run, because there are a lot of contents where I think Parisa actually has a lot more damage than Arden over time. So that's where I think getting her to Supreme Plus specifically for this PvE contents is okay. Obviously, I think Parisa doesn't see that much of a use, but I do think that Parisa is a decently good carry if she's given enough space, if she's given enough time. So the same, I don't know. Okay, for Reese is also another unit which I really don't know how to group Reese. Like, I kind of want to put Reese in the Supreme Plus for PP, but at the same time I also want to put him for the Supreme Plus for PvE side, because there are just certain contents where Reese is just really good as a damage dealer, but it's not like a super duper versatile and, like, you know, at first glance you see Reese as an OP character kind of character. Like, this character is just a good fit into a multitude of situations, and there are just a lot of units which does solve the job better, right? That you kind of forget the existence of this unit. So Reese is one of them, and I have seen super duper stacked up Reese in Supreme Arena, because I do have a friend that I showcase in multiple videos with a Paragon 4 5-star Reese, and the Reese just stress me every time I try to attack him, right? And that's why I think, like, Reese is somewhere here and here, because, like, I've also seen Reese perform in the PvE side, and this is the very awkward moment where I don't know where to put Reese. So I will just put Reese. Okay, I'll just put Reese here in the PvP side. Yeah, because right now I think for the PvE side there is a lot of way better maulers for the PvE side of things, that I think Reese, if you were to invest in Reese, I think Reese is probably more for the PvP centric purposes. Yeah, so I'll put Reese here. So that's that. Tamasia, yeah, Tamasia for PvE. Okay, so Tamasia right now has a team in the AFK stage push which I think is insanely good, which is the Iron Almas Tamasia Stampede team, where Iron pulls everyone together, and then you rely on Almas EX weapon for your Tamasia's knockup effect to have an extended control duration. And on top of that, there are a boss, or there are a few bosses. Okay, Necro Dragon Tamasia is still okay, but for the other bosses, I think Tamasia should still be able to find some use in the Dream Realm side. So if you do invest in Tamasia all the way to Supreme Plus, it's a viable option, and it's more so for the PvE contents, because PvP side I think Tamasia hasn't really found much success. And yeah, I mean, if I were to recommend people to invest in Tamasia, it will be strictly for the teams I mentioned, and also for certain bosses for the Dream Realm side. So that's why Supreme Plus for PvE. I think that's that. Do I have other units I want to get to Supreme Plus? Oh, Lumon. Okay. Oh yeah, Lumon. Okay, so Lumon's case, it's because of the rise of smoky teams. So Lumon just offers that additional control effect to buy enough time for Smoky's ultimate to come through. And on top of that, Lumon has the added benefit of repositioning enemies, and he's actually quite clutch in certain AFK stage moments. So if you're investing in Lumon, you want to push him to Supreme Plus just to be a better tank, because Supreme Plus actually gives him more tankability as a frontliner, so he will be able to buy a little bit more time. Obviously, I'm not saying that you need to invest in Lumon, but right, if you get him to Supreme Plus just for that smoky team, actually a pretty decent character. So that's why I'm gonna put Lumon here. Danny as well. So Danny and Lumon, I'll say they Them and Hermasia belongs to this category where they have, I'll say, like decent PvE prowess, and because they are a tank, you kind of want to get them up to Supreme Plus for them to tank better, to do their job a little bit better. So for Dani's case, Dani's Supreme Plus ability, let me just run through it briefly first. So Dani's Supreme Plus ability actually gives her the additional ability to recover HP. So this will definitely help her tank better and allow her to do her job as a PvE tank. So for the PvP side, you can also use Dani. Not the best, but definitely usable. So not a very powerful character that you want to focus on, but if you do intend to push it to Supreme Plus, chances are is for the PvE side, which I mentioned just now. Okay, so I also put Ludovic in the Supreme Plus for PvE tier because Ludovic right now, I think being one of the more premium Graveborn healers, you can definitely get him to Supreme Plus for his burst healing potential, because Ludovic is able to actually turn the tides of battle if his heal actually bypass the damage done by the enemy. So insane amounts of heal. So if you're getting him to Supreme Plus, it's mostly for PvE purposes, like your Graveborn centric game modes like Ravage Realm, for example. You're getting him to S plus for his healing purposes in Legends Trial, for example, and you can also run him in certain PvE teams to provide for the additional heals in the place of your traditional healers like Hewin, Smokey, like Damien, for example. So this character is decently good, and since we are talking about healer from the Graveborn side, with the existence of Ludovic, I've decided to put Niru down in the do not do it, because yeah, Niru has a very specific niche, which is to turn units into spirit form, but then like Ludovic is there, so that's why I don't recommend people increasing Niru's tier in the first place, because very niche use, and Graveborn now has a better healer on top. So that's why I decided to put Niru here. I actually wanted to put Niru up there, but then after I went through Ludovic, I felt that Niru should go down, because yeah, Ludovic just does his job a lot better. And then, right, that's pretty much it for Supreme Plus for PV. Let me just run through if there's anything I want to... Oh yeah, Freyesto. Oh yeah, Freyesto. Okay, so Freyesto is a character that's insanely good all around. I think you can also run Freyesto for PvP purposes, and you can obviously run Freyesto in a multitude of game modes, but Freyesto's strength lies fundamentally on the PvE side. So this character, in fact, never mind, I'll put Freyesto up there. I'll explain Freyesto later. Yeah, which is very versatile, very strong. Okay, I think for PvE side, I think that's pretty much it. Okay, so with that, let us move on to the Mythic Plus is enough. So Mythic Plus is enough is basically a tier where I think the units getting the EX weapon would be more than sufficient in terms of doing what they want to do, and generally they are more supportive by nature. So I'm just going to put the units here first. So we have Rowan, we have Coco, we have... Okay, almost at M plus is more than sufficient. Yeah, I mean, getting him to Supreme Plus is good, by the way, but Almas has multiple utilities to him. So I'm going to put Almas at Mythic Plus is enough. And for Reyna, I already explained, it's for the EX weapon, obviously, for the damage reduction. I mean, for the damage amplification on the boss. And then for Coco, for the shielding, right? So if you get Coco to Supreme Plus, it's for more stats on her to survive better, but Coco's primary usage is for her EX weapon as well as the ultimate damage reduction. So that's why Coco is here. Rowan is a character that doesn't scale off his stats. He doesn't do more damage because he's not a damage dealer, he's more of a battery character, and the ultimate skills number is a consistent one that's not affected by the stats. So you don't need more stats on him. Getting him to M plus for the super potion, for the burst heal, as well as the defense boost would be more than sufficient. And then for Almas' case, even though Almas is a tank, right, this character is sufficient enough at Mythic Plus because Almas is often used as a combo piece, and he's used in tandem with Iron, obviously. So usually, right, your Iron pulls everyone in, and then Almas will instantaneously root them for additional control, and Almas usually ain't exactly that tanky in the first place. So he'll run up to the front line, and then he will lose his HP quickly, and then transform to a backline tree to continuously provide the shielding as well as control for the team. So that's why Almas is more than sufficient at M+, although getting him to S+ will give you additional control which is something that you can consider. So that is if you need that little bit of control to buy you a little bit of time. So if you want to use Almas in PvP, you definitely need to get him to Supreme Plus, but in most cases, if you're pairing him as a combo piece with Iron, then M Plus is more than sufficient. So that's pretty much it for the Mythic Plus is enough. I kind of want to put Hugh in here. Let me think, do I want to put Hugh in here? I mean, Hewin's... Okay, Hewin's Enhanced Force is actually insanely good, the 30 hits. So I guess Hewin should be on top. Yeah. Okay. So that's pretty much it. Mikola... Okay, but Mikola's Supreme Plus skill is so strong though. Yeah, okay, so I think, yeah, Mikola goes up to Supreme Plus top priority. Okay, so that's pretty much it for M Plus is enough. So now, let us move on to the final tier, which is the tier that I think most of you guys are the most interested in. And that is units which you want to get to Supreme Plus at the highest priority. So I explain each and every one of them so that you guys can understand why you want to go for them first. And in which areas they are exceptionally good. But in general, these characters are generally versatile all around and they are decently good, so that's why they are the Supreme Plus top priority. Okay, so Lily May needs no explanation. Strongest carry, very well-rounded unit all around, used almost everywhere, so getting her to Supreme Plus, thumbs up. Okay, Freyasto, also a very versatile character in general, insanely good for AFK stage push, used in the late game for the Song of Strife Dream Realms. And we can see his scaling being another factor for his late game in the Dream Realm for Waves of Intrigue as well. So that's why very versatile, very powerful character all around. And getting him to Supreme Plus will definitely allow him to tank a lot better and do more damage with more stats. So that's why he's also in the S Plus top priority. And then we have Mikola. So this character, right? Okay, I was contemplating whether or not I want to put Mikola in M Plus is enough. Then I realized that Mikola's Supreme Plus skill is actually super duper insane, because the Supreme Plus skill basically allows you to have permanent Courage Sphere, which is the ultimate ability. So this Courage Sphere gives a massive buff to your team, and being able to just keep the sphere up for the whole battle is what makes Mikola insanely powerful. So that's why, yeah, Mikola is S Plus top priority, because right now Mikola is seeing a lot of use in Dream Realm, and she will see more use later on with an introduction of another artifact, which is a frontliner spell, so stay tuned for that. But yeah, very good Dream Realm character, so S Plus is okay for her. So that's for Mikola. And then we have Odie, generally a very powerful character, be it a Dream Realm carry for your AFK stage push or even the PvP side of things. So Odie has always been a very top tier S Plus priority and will remain a case if his insta-kill is not overshadowed by other units or there are other cheaper units available to get to S Plus ASAP. So Odie is here. And obviously our dear Iron, Arden, as well as Carolina trio, S Plus for sure, for their AFK stage pushing prowess. You can also use them in PvP as well, very powerful. Although Carolina has fallen off quite a bit, but I think Carolina is still a pretty decent character, right, for the pushing side in terms of the AFK stage. And also, if the enemies have a very slow pace heal centric team, actually Carolina is a good unit to use, because Carolina doesn't die that easily against a slow pace team, so she's able to build up damage and then nuke the enemy down. Okay, so for Damien's case, I actually wanted to put Damien in Supreme Plus top priority, but I thought about it and actually Damien with the EX weapon for that haste buff is more than sufficient, although getting more stats on him will give him better heal numbers. But I think Damien as a buffer is the core part for his kit right now. So you can obviously upgrade him to Supreme Plus for PvP purposes, but then because there is almost in the pool right now, so for the A level side, I think Arden is a must put for the A level wilders. So for the other slot is between Damien and Almas, and I think it will be better if you split your resources between the two of them, getting them to M plus for the Iron Almas comp. So I think Damien at M plus is sufficient just for that burst haste buff at the start, and also a little bit of heal and some blinds to apply for more debuffs on the enemy. So that's why I shifted Damien down a little bit. And then continuing the Supreme Plus top priority, Smokey, Shakir, as well as Hewin. Okay, so Smokey needs no explanation. Like this character used almost in every single game mode except for maybe PvP. So getting him to Supreme Plus is basically one of the topmost priority, because you use him to push through deficit stages and you use him a lot for Dream Realm. So getting him up to Supreme Plus gives you more heals, more sustain for Dream Realm, and also more damage in the process. For Shakir's case, Shakir will be good moving forward because of a frontliner spell which actually makes this character a lot stronger. And also Shakir is also one of the answers to Iron control, or just control in general, once he's able to transform into his Lupin form. So you want to have more stats on him, right, for him to survive better, to buy him enough time to transform. And then for Hewin's case, Hewin is one of those healers where she's just so impactful, like be it like PvE or PvP, that I think she's worth it to just get to Supreme Plus, get her EX weapon to EX 10, and yeah, use her in the different game modes. Like, this character is just really good so far. Like, every single time people talk about Hewin, like, I think they under evaluate her, but Hewin is so impactful for that massive whole map damage reduction, very consistent heal, uninterruptible heal, so control doesn't work against her when he's casting her ultimate. So very good support. That's why I put her here. And then, right, we have Talon, Skalita, as well as Torrent. Okay, so I think Torrent right now, even though I think Torrent isn't seeing that much use for the PvE pushing side, but like Torrent is still one of the best tanks to protect your ally with, and it's also one of the best tank in PvP. Anti-melee, very powerful. So still top tier in terms of priority for the tiers itself. Obviously you can put him to M+, but getting Torrent to Supreme Plus allows him to take more damage. That's where his ultimate becomes even more impactful, and that's why you want to put him to Supreme Plus. And then for Talon and Skalita, Skalita specifically is a must if you want to use her for Supreme Plus, because Skalita's kit is spread out across her whole skill set, and Supreme Plus is where her shielding ability provides a massive defensive buff when she's in the air. So this defensive buff is actually really crucial to just buy whatever time you can for Skalita to descend, for her to charge up her damage output to become the carry. So if you want to invest in Skalita, you need to get her to Supreme Plus to maximize her ability. You need to get her EX weapon, you need to get her to Supreme Plus. And then for Talon's case, I think Talon can definitely function at the lower tier, but in most cases, if you're running Talon, you're using her as the main damage dealer. So getting Talon to Supreme Plus is actually really helpful for her to do more damage. And obviously, that's why you want to put her to Supreme Plus. Obviously, I think Talon isn't really like a character that you must go for Supreme Plus. But if you want to actually use her for your Dream Realm purposes, or even for your PvP, or even for your AFK stage pushing side of things, then I think Supreme Plus is the way to go for Talon. Okay, so that's pretty much it for this video. I shifted morale down because after I went through the final compilation, I realized that I accidentally brought her up to the wrong place. So right now, this is the confirmed copy on the right side in terms of the rankings. So with regards to this reference or this priority guide itself, what I'll say is you invest in the tiers of the units that you use the most, right? If you use, for example, Danny a lot, if you use Ludovic a lot, even though they are Supreme Plus for PvE on my side, but you use them for PvP as well, getting them to Supreme Plus is not a bad choice, right? If you use Barrow a lot for your Zoo team in AFK stage push, and Barrow's insanely good for PvP, getting Barrow up to Supreme Plus is also a good choice. So for this list itself, I'll say units in the Supreme Plus as well as Mythic Plus is enough, are usually the units that people will be building. But if there are other units in the other categories that you use a lot, getting their tiers up might not be a bad option, right? So that's one thing that I want to clarify. Just try to avoid units that are generally not good that is down here. I think you're good to go. Like, basically just don't invest in these units, because there are a bunch of good units up there that actually performs decently well across different game modes. So these are the units that you want to invest in, right? Whether or not you want to go for this unit as Supreme Plus first or that unit to Mythic Plus first depends on your usage as well as how you build your account. And that's it for this video, right? Thank you very much for watching to the end. Do remember to like and subscribe to see more. See you guys again in my next video. Bye guys.